In the autonomic nervous system, so we're talking about your ANS here, how many neurons are in a motor pathway? Two. Okay. So just go through that real quick, make sure everything's good on that one. So yeah, so autonomic nervous system, motor pathway. We said the first one would be here. And then my second one there. So whatever's we're going to. So we need to probably name those two. There's some other questions here. This one is pre. This one is post. And we say they're ganglia, right? So here's my ganglia. So it's pre-ganglionic. And this one is post-ganglionic. Which one's myelinated? The first one, the pre, over here. Okay. So there's about 3 questions for you right there. As long as you can do that, we're looking pretty good. So in that autonomic pathway, somatic motor pathway, not somatic motor, but this motor pathway, 2 neurons, pre and post ganglionic. First one's myelinated, second one's not. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Just stop me if you guys have any questions, because we're going to run through this. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's see. Remember talking about I have these 3 prevertebral ganglia. They're in the front, through here. This one was called my celiac. This one was my superior mesenteric and my inferior mesenteric. And then I had this sympathetic chain, sort of going this way. So here's your question. It says, post-ganglionic neurons that innervate organs in the abdominal pelvic region would synapse in which type of ganglia? Yeah, so this is all for my thoracic stuff, right? Over here, you sort of mentioned. And then all this stuff here is for my abdominal pelvic. So all those, and those are called prevertebral ganglia, all 3 of them together. Prevertebral. And the other name for them, whether I give it to you or not, but they're also called collateral ganglia. So prevertebral or collateral ganglia. The other one are my for my thoracic area, right? That's my sympathetic chain. So you sort of need to know like where these things are going to, if I'm synapsing here or synapsing there. Does that look pretty okay? Does that make sense? Haven't lost anybody yet? So by synapse in my sympathetic chain, going to the thoracic area. By synapse in my prevertebral, I'm going to the abdominal pelvic. And then we get more specific, right? By synapse here in my celiac, then it's what? Stomach, liver, things like that. Superior, we said small intestines. Inferior, large intestines, sex organs, bladder, things of that nature. Are we okay with that stuff? Okay, so we're good there. Here's a good one. The sympathetic nervous system has its origin at which of the following levels? So where would I find my sympathetic? From which level to which level sort of thing?
T1 to L2.
From T1 down to L2. Right, that's all my sympathetic stuff. What's my parasympathetic?
Cranial and sacral.
Yeah, right, so 3, 7, 9, 10. And then S2, S3, and S4. So those are my parasympathetic. So there's a question on that as well. So make sure you know the levels for sympathetic versus parasympathetic. That's pretty easy, I think. Okay. So there's 2 questions there. So one's for sympathetic, the other one's for parasympathetic. Here's a good one. The conscious awareness and interpretation of a stimulus best describes what? A sensation or a perception. So the conscious awareness and interpretation best describes a perception, right? So make sure you know those 2 words because they're very similar. If you interpret it, then it's a perception. If you just receive it, then it's a sensation.
Is this for the final or for tomorrow?
That's also on your thing for tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, so remember we had like the different types of sense. Yeah. Okay, that looks okay. What about, it's all that sensory stuff, right? What about special senses? What's included with a special sense?
Sight and smell.
5 things, right? You get 5 things. So we have sight, smell, taste, hearing, and balance. And then general senses are what? Everything else. So if it's not a special sense, then it has to be a general sense. Okay, those are pretty good. Let's see here. Here's some other ones now. So the most, listen, so the most superior prevertebral ganglia is which one? Most superior. The celiac, right? So it's the one on top. So I might ask a question along that line, looks like, possibly, through here. That was a good one. Here's like another off question too for you. Pain from an organ that's found in a different part of the body that's referred to a different body part is called what?
Referred pain.
Referred pain, right? So if it gets referred out, yeah, it's referred pain. How about if you like chop off an arm and you still feel pain there? Then it's called phantom limb pain, right? Sort of thing. So we have those two types of, pain or information being processed there. So yeah, so make sure you know about phantom limb pain and referred pain. So those are two good ones. How about this one? Preganglionic visceral motor neurons are myelinated or unmyelinated? Myelinated. Do they go through the white rami or the gray rami?
White.
White rami. That's a good one. Okay. Which area is used to control skeletal muscles? Anterior gray horn, lateral gray horn, or the posterior gray horn?
Interior.
Interior.
Right, yeah, got over those here. Right, so here's a little guy, who's like this, through here. And we said, anything on the back side is sensory, that's good to know. So just like your little review. Motor on the front. Here's my posterior gray horn, so it does all my sensory. Anterior gray horn is motor commands to, where am I going? Anterior gray horn? Skeletal muscle. And then my lateral gray horn is motor commands to my visceral stuff. So make sure you know about that. There's a couple questions there. So if I go to skeletal muscle, anterior gray horn. If I go to all my cardiac muscles, smooth muscles and glands, lateral gray horn. And then on the back side, it's all my sensory stuff for that one. Okay, that's good. Let's see. What do I find in my ventral root? So what do I find in a ventral root? So here's my ventral root, right? So let's do this once before for you. So here's my ventral root here. What might I find inside of that ventral root? Good question, right? All right, so what's a spinal nerve? Spinal nerve, it's a nerve on there. Do I have like, here's my little sensory neuron, sort of thing, right, coming out. Here's my little motor neuron coming out. So my neurons are nothing more than like axons from both sensory and motor neurons, right? Make up my spinal nerves for me so I can take information to my muscles and to my heart and everything else. So what do I find in my ventral root then? I'm going to find axons of motor neurons, right? It's all my motor stuff. So axons of motor neurons. What do I find in my dorsal root? Axons of sensory neurons. So just trying to like sort of pull it, it's like, I know it's like an odd question, right, sort of thing, but so yes, my ventral root carries all of my motor commands, right? This is all motor stuff. My dorsal root carries all of my sensory information over there. So sensory in, right, motor out. Sensory in, motor out. So spinal nerves carry both motor and sensory. Right there. Is that okay? So sensory motor, that sort of thing. Okay, what about, here's a good one too. I'm sure this is already done. That's from like another chapter, so we're going to do this one. So we already did, so S2, 3, 4, there's a question on that one again. So here's another Rami communicantes question for you. So just sort of redraw that a little bit, right? Because we added a few things on here for you. We did that crazy little thing like this the other day. Okay, so make sure you know about this too, as far as dorsal ramus. So where am I heading if I'm going through my dorsal ramus? To your back. That's all I got to know. This goes, here's the pathway to go to my back. If I go through my ventral ramus, to my front, and arms and legs. Good job. So arm, leg, that sort of thing. If I go through here, now this whole thing, that's my rami communicantes. Where am I heading if I come through here?
Visceral.
Yeah, all of my internal organs. So the stuff that's like heart, lung, spleen, liver, gallbladder, all that internal visceral stuff. So there's a few questions about this to make sure you know. And again, here's my white side, my white rami. Here's my gray side over here. All right, cool. Let's see. So I already did that one for you. There's another question there. Sensory information there. We got that one there. So just make sure you know about how this thing synapse too, that first ganglia. Coming back this way. Don't forget that one as far as coming through the white, stopping here in that sympathetic chain. And then I have to backtrack, right? I'm going to go backwards to like a sweat gland in my hand or to my back. So make sure you know, it always has to have two. That's my closest ganglia. Okay. So what do you guys think? Yes, or kind of maybe? Is that okay? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got lots of questions on that stuff. That's probably about 20 questions maybe on your exam from this stuff here. So we're kind of pretty close to it.
Can you just give the numbers and letters really quick?
Question number 13 is A. Is that that's what thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, I'll make sure it's right. So 13 has to be A. Okay, right down here. So 13 is A. That's an unlucky question too. 13, right? It's a good thing to give it to you. Rather than mistake. Okay. All right. So that's for that. So maybe like run through some of the other stuff too. How about that? Just real quick. Okay. So let me just put this in part of it. Let's go with brain stuff, do you think? Got chapter 14, brain stuff. So, what should you know about brain stuff? About the major parts of your brain. Does that sound pretty good? Major parts, so cerebrum and cerebellum. Those are two good ones, right? So cerebrum, the big ones. And then we have, which one? Diencephalon and brainstem. And you may want to know what's in each of those. So like what's in your diencephalon? What's included with the diencephalon?
All the thalamus.
All the thalamus stuff, right? So thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, subthalamus. So if that word thalamus is in there, it's part of the diencephalon. And then the brainstem's pretty easy. It's just the medulla, pons, midbrain. So expect like probably 2 questions off of that. So 2 questions on the parts, major parts of the brain.
Maybe you say like what it contains, is that what you're gonna ask? Or?
Yeah, I might say, which of the following is not included in the diencephalon? And I'll give you, thalamus, hypothalamus, something crazy in there, like pituitary gland, something like that, and just pick that one out. So, yeah, that'd be good. So it's a question there. Then, gosh, got some issues here. Okay. Then you need to know about blood supply. Blood supply. Remember carotid arteries and jugular veins. Carotid artery, jugular vein. Which one carries blood to the brain? Carotid artery. Good. Okay. That's good to know. What about that blood-brain barrier? Who makes it?
Astrocytes.
Astrocytes. That would be good to know. Astrocytes. What about? There's some more cranial nerve questions. I know you guys did that take-home quiz, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions on cranial nerves. So you may want to know those as well. As far as, we're going to do which ones are motor or sensory. So if you got that little, some say marry money, but my brother, that sort of thing. So you can go through and like pick out which ones are sensory and motor. So again, there's like 4 questions there. That's 8 points for you. I might ask about which one does like eye movement. So which one does eye movement? Yeah, it's 3, 4, and 6, right? So you can probably figure those out. And then there's a question in there about, like cranial nerve number 2 is called what? optic nerve, right? Cranial nerve or whatever. So be able to put the number and the name together. So number and name together. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to run through this. This is like on my little cheat sheet here. Also, you need to know about the meninges. Again, we have those 3 layers, pia, arachnoid, and dura. Make sure you know how they're sequenced. Meaning like the pia matter is the deepest, the dura matter is the most superficial. So I would definitely know that. That's a good question. And then a little bit on cerebral spinal fluid. With that one, you need to know the flow, meaning like the 2 lateral ventricles empties into the 3rd ventricle through that interventricular foramen thing. And then from the 3rd goes to the 4th through the cerebral aqueduct. Inside here I have ependymal cells. And we make that about, what, every 8 hours, brand new cerebrospinal fluid. So there's probably about maybe 3 questions off of that right there. So every 8 hours, know the flow, know about the ependymal cells. So there are several questions there. That's good. What do I want you to know about that stuff? So now we're going to do the parts of the brain. We're going to start with the brain stem at the bottom. And again, we have the medulla. You have your medulla, the pons, and your midbrain. What's the medulla? What's the function for medulla? Heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, right? That sort of thing. So make sure you know about that. What are like ascending and descending tracts? That's on there too, right? So there's a couple of questions on the medulla. So we got 2 questions on the medulla. Make sure I got everything right here for you. Okay, that's good. And then decusation. Just know what a decusation is. That's that spot where it crosses from right to left or left to right, however you sort of look at it. Because again, the right side of the brain controls the left side of your body. So that would be good to know. What's the bridge part of the brain stem? The pons. Make sure you know bridge and pons sort of goes together. So that's pretty much all we said for this little guy here. Just the bridge sort of connects some things together for us. And then the big one was midbrain, right? We did a lot of stuff, pretty much. Yeah, superior, inferior colliculi. What do those things do for you? Reflex movements, right? So reflex movements is like the eye, head, neck, and trunk, that sort of thing. So which one does eye reflex movements?
Superior.
Superior. Which one does head, neck, and trunk? Should I throw that question out? You guys aren't looking like too excited about that one, I don't know, so. I think you guys were like, you guys are starting to come down, aren't you? It's like, crashing, like, yeah, no. So, what do you know about the substantia nigra? What's it make? Dopamine. And what's the function of that? For normal muscular movement. So it's linked with Parkinson's disease, right? So if you don't have enough dopamine, then you get this very rigid, cog-wheeled sort of motion, mask-like appearance. All those things are related to skeletal muscles. So you know about substantia nigra, dopamine, Parkinson's. That sort of thing would be perfect. So at least one question there, that one. What about your reticular formation? That's used for to wake you up and to maintain your consciousness, exactly, so that's good. There's only one question there, so one on that one. And the cerebellum, what's the function of that little guy?
Posture balance.
Yeah, posture, balance, coordination, that sort of thing, so that's a good one. Diencephalon, so we're on to the diencephalon now. We said, yeah, the thalamus does a couple things, right? It's like a little relay center for the thalamus. That would be good to know. So the thalamus is a relay center. And I think I gave you something on like memory, learning, emotions, right? That also sort of goes with your thalamus as well. So that would be good. How about the hypothalamus? That's the big player, right? We said like 6 questions in a row answered hypothalamus. So I would definitely be aware of that. So if you keep getting the same answer, then it's probably still right. That's good. And what connects the hypothalamus to your pituitary gland? What's that little stem called? The infundibulum. So that would be good to know too, I'm guessing. Okay, that's great. So hunger, thirst, emotions, that's all good stuff. Cerebrum. What connects the right side of your brain to the left side? Corpus callosum. There's a question there too. That's a good one. I'll try to slow down a little bit for you too. The lobes of the brain, you already have that down, right? So frontal, parietal, temporal. Here's a couple questions here. Give you guys a second to catch up there. Pre and post central gyrus. So pre and post central gyrus. What's the pre-central responsible for? Motor commands to skeletal muscle. And the post-central gyrus? Somatosensory. 1 person out of 45. Awesome. Good job. All right, you guys are doing great. Okay, let's see how for you here. Here we go. We have white matter versus gray matter. So stuff we've already done. What do we know about those association tracts? Where do they run? Those little neurons run from? Same side, right? So from the gyra on the same side of the brain. That's good to know. And then what about the commissural tracts? They cross over from one side to the other. Perfect. Okay. Those are good. Commissural tracts. Basal ganglia. So one, two. Of course, a few questions on the limbic system. That again is your emotional center. Basically, it's your personality. And so he said the guy you studied way back when was Phineas Gage. Wow, you guys are doing pretty awesome. Okay, that's great. So, yeah, don't pick Phineas and Ferb. That's not the right answer. That's a distractor answer that's on there, so don't pick that one. Let's see. What's Broca's speech area good for? Speech stuff, right? So vocalization, respiration, tongue, lips, cheeks. All those things have to work properly so you can speak. And what side of the brain would be good for like math and science and language? Left side. And then art and music? Right side, right? So if you're right-sided, you're more artsy, creative. That's the thing. And then probably just one question on brain waves. So alpha, beta, theta, delta, that sort of thing. So if you have some brain damage, you're going to have some delta waves. If you're thinking, you're going to have some beta waves, right, sort of thing? Yeah, if you're in trouble with stress, theta waves, good job, okay. And then there's cranial waves. All right, so that's good, that chapter. We just got one more little chapter. It's a simple chapter too, so that won't take too long. That's all the sensory. Sensory, motor, and integrative systems. So, all right, so here's that whole sensation perception thing. So I already gave you that question from before. So I think we're pretty good on that one. Not so bad there. General senses and special senses. I think we're okay on that one. There's a question there. Nothing there. What about exteroreceptors? What would they monitor? Outside stuff, right? Interoreceptors do inside things, and proprioceptors will do joints. Perfect. That's all you gotta know there. Nothing there, nothing there. What do you know about free nerve endings? What type of information would they transmit? Pain and temperature. So pain and temperature for those free nerve endings, that's good to know. So pain and temperature. We already talked about referred pain and phantom limb, either pain or sensation, so I think you guys are okay on that one too. Maybe I might throw in this question. Muscle spindle question, muscle spindle fibers and tendon organs. Which one does length? Muscle spindle for that one, right? Which one does tension? The Golgi tendon, right, for that one. So I think I'll have one question on either or. So one on muscle spindle fibers or Golgi tendon organs. So one does length, the other one does tension. So make sure you look at that one. I'm going to throw that one in there. Okay? And then here's that somatic sensory pathway. Somebody was asking about that earlier. So somatic sensory pathway have how many neurons in it? Three, right? First, second, and third. It's all they're called. So first order, second order, third order neuron for my somatic sensory. So I think I have that. I'll add that question. That'd be a good one. And what about somatic motor? How many? Two, right? It's an upper and a lower motor neuron. So there's a question for you too. And anything else? Sleep. Question on sleep. We can do a sleep question. It's pretty easy to do. When do you dream? During which type? REM or non-REM? REM cycle. Okay. That's the one. Your body sort of goes in and out throughout the night, right? So you're sort of REMing and non-REMing, all that good stuff. And the question on memory. What about immediate memory? That's which one? You know, you're like right here and now sort of thing, right? So it's like you're immediate, you're in class, you're taking notes, that sort of thing. Long-term memory. That's like a lifetime, right, sort of thing? So it's like when you're 2 or 3 years old, you're there. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? And that's it. Woohoo! Not so bad, right? Maybe? I don't know. Any questions? Yeah.
This is for tomorrow exam, correct?
Tomorrow's exam will have, yeah,
All this that you.
those 3 chapters.
Okay.
So some A and S, some memory questions, and then sensory stuff, and then brain stuff. So chapter 14, 16, and 17, or something like that, whatever it is. So I'll try to make it easy for you. Yes. You guys are like really good at the practical, so nobody else has questions?